On this day, we're going to take a look at one of the most haunted places in the world. Now, if you've seen my other videos about the RMS Titanic or the RMS Queen Mary, you'll know that both these ships have had their fair share of tragedy and are now considered to be amongst the most haunted places on Earth. However, there is another location associated with the RMS Queen Mary that is often overlooked when people talk about these famous ghost stories, but it should not be. This place is known as the RMS Queen Mary Annex, and it's located in Long Beach, California. To better understand what the Annex is and why so many people consider it to be haunted, we need to first learn about the ship itself. So let's start from the beginning. The RMS Queen Mary was built by the Cunard Line in 1930, and she was intended to be the fastest ocean liner of her time. And boy, did they deliver. She was designed to carry passengers between Southampton, England, and New York City. But during World War II, she served as a troop ship for the United States Navy. Her service as a transport ship was honorable, and she earned the right to be decorated with 2 battle stars for her efforts. However, after the war had ended, the ship returned to her original route and life seemed to be returning back to normal. That was until one fateful night. On October 2, 1942, while traveling from Los Angeles to New Orleans, the captain noticed a dense fog blanketing the entire sea. As a result, he decided to slow the ship down to just 6 knots per hour. Unfortunately, though, the captain didn't see the partially submerged wreck of a tanker which was abandoned and drifted in the same direction as the ship. The ship ran head-on into the wreck, and a hole was torn in her starboard side. This caused water to begin flooding into the ship. Despite the best efforts of the crew, the RMS Queen Mary began to sink. Luckily, another ship spotted the flares that were being shot off from the captain, and a rescue mission was formed. The people aboard the RMS Queen Mary were rescued, but the ship was now beyond repair. She was towed to a harbor where she was finally put out of her misery. Some people said that she could be saved, but the damage was just too great, and she was officially scrapped. However, before she was broken apart, someone had an idea. Instead of letting this iconic ship be destroyed, Long Beach decided to purchase her and turn her into a hotel. After some extensive renovations, the ship was opened to the public on May 19, 1971. Since then, she has been one of the top tourist attractions in all of California. But unfortunately, the ship's troubles weren't over yet. You see, like I said at the beginning of the video, the RMS Queen Mary has one of the highest concentrations of ghosts of any place in the world. There have been at least 35 people who died aboard the ship, and their spirits refuse to move on. It's quite common for visitors to experience paranormal activity, including hearing disembodied footsteps, voices, seeing shadows, feeling unexplained touches, and even witnessing full apparitions. However, there's one area in particular that is especially active, and that's the Annex. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that the ship has 3 classes of passengers: first, second, and third class. And the Annex used to house the third-class passengers. Now, throughout the years, there have been countless reports of paranormal activity happening within the walls of the Annex. In fact, the entire third-class section of the ship is considered to be cursed. So let's take a closer look at what exactly happens here. As soon as guests walk through the door of the Annex, they can feel a drastic change in temperature. It almost feels as if you've stepped through a portal and entered a different dimension. Most of the rooms themselves aren't occupied, but those that are have reported strange occurrences happening every single night. For example, there's room 3353, which is known to be haunted by a woman in a Victorian nightgown. One night, a guest checked into the room and refused to believe that ghosts were real. Later that night, however, he woke up in his bed and saw the ghost of the woman standing over him. He immediately checked out, even though it was in the middle of the night. Then there's room 3719, which is considered to be one of the most haunted rooms on the entire ship. A couple stayed in the room one night, and when they turned off the lights, they heard chains dragging metal moans. They also felt a presence at the foot of their bed and even witnessed the ghost of an old man shaking the bed frame. But it's not just the rooms that are haunted. Even the corridors are just as active. Many people have reported being touched by cold hands while walking through the empty hallways. Sometimes it's just a gentle tap on the shoulder, but other times it's a full-on grab. The scariest part is that no one is ever there. People have even tried setting up cameras to try and capture whatever's going on, but nothing ever shows up on the tapes. One of the most famous stories comes from a young girl named Helen Viola. Helen and her family were staying in room 3738, which is right across from room 3739. One night, while they were asleep, they heard a knock coming from the neighboring room. Helen went to investigate, but when she opened the door, it was completely empty. She went back to her room and closed the door. Then the knocking started again, only this time it was coming from inside their own room. When she investigated, she saw the apparition of a young girl standing next to her bed. The little girl then walked past her and down the hallway. Helen wasn't the only one to witness this, however. In 1976, two young boys were staying in the same exact room. They were playing in bed when the apparition appeared once again and walked past them. But this time, they were able to get a good look at her. She was wearing a white nightgown and her hair was pulled back with a ribbon. She then walked down the hallway and turned the corner. The boys told their parents what they saw and they rushed over to Helen's grave in the Queen Mary Cemetery. Sure enough, it was the exact same nightgown and hair ribbon that she was buried in. There's also the story of John Pedder, who worked as a fireman on the ship. One night he was working in the engine room when he was suddenly overcome with an urge to check on the boiler room. As he walked down the hallway, he suddenly came face to face with the ghost of a man in an old-fashioned sailor suit. John had never seen this man before in his life, but something told him that he needed to follow him. As John walked toward the boiler room, the ghost disappeared. Feeling uneasy, he continued his journey, and that's when he noticed that the firebox doors had been left wide open. Normally, this would have been impossible since it took two men to move them. He quickly shut the doors and went to alert his boss. But when he turned around, he saw the ghost of the sailor once again. The ghost pointed to the doors that John had just closed and then shook his head violently from side to side. Realizing what had happened, John ran back to the boiler room and sure enough, the doors had swung open once again. If he hadn't listened to the ghost, the entire ship could have caught on fire and everyone would have died. These are just some of the more well-known stories that have happened at the Annex, but there are countless others that are just as creepy. Today, the Annex is still open to the public and you can visit and experience the paranormal activity for yourself. Do you believe in ghosts? Let me know your thoughts. That's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.